Well, again, it's a great honor for me to be here today and share these 3 days with understanding and learning from the category on biomedicine, entrepreneurship and willingness to really play a role in the world. Thank you, Khaled, for your invitation and letting me the opportunity to learn about that fascinating team of talented people. So one of I will try to explain what is behind this sentence along the presentation. This presentation it's not driven by a lot of words, it's more images, where I will try to drive you to the concepts I want to share with you today. So the first thing is, as we thank you for the introduction. What I'm going to explain is based on 4 different points of view. One is as a medical doctor, which I practiced for 8 years. The second one is a bit in the industry, another period of time, big pharma, company like Sanofi, and then in the medium-sized pharma as well. Then moving to an entrepreneur project, trying to fill the gap in business development and trying to understand all the different stakeholders and making some kind of standardization in business development. And then since 2012, I've been involved in a business school called ESADE, which is in the top 10 in Europe, trying to train business people, entrepreneurs, to be more attractive to come to the science space, which normally they are a little bit afraid of. So the story of our company, it's 16 years on the ground. We have done more than 400 projects in business development. We have dealt with more than 10,000 healthcare companies and different stakeholders, and we have done 140 deals. That is just to give you an idea that what I'm going to explain to you is based on real facts. It's on the learning that we achieved over these 16 years, trying to be in the middle of academia and industry, but also dealing with all the stakeholders that are playing a role in this business. So this is the space we're trying or we have already been discussing these days, which bringing a lot of different perspective. Which the good and the bad thing of being at the end of the presentation is that, or at the end of the days, is that most of the things have already been done and said. That's a challenging thing because you need to bring new things, but on the other side, most of the things that will be here have already been validated. So it's a good combination. I put that slide in terms of saying, well, I understand, from my understanding, we are talking about, or this is at least my presentation, is based on research on the academy, not the research done on the big pharma, the research done at the level of the academy towards that big pharma that we learn a lot these days. But if you see the budgets, well, I don't see if you see the budgets there, but this is the 2016 budgets in development that the big pharma is investing in the top 20. It's all about billions of dollars. So that's the two walls we are trying to attract, but there's a lot in between. From our work that we have done, we understand that under a business development point of view, which is basically the activity to make partnerships happen, just as we said, signing and making that happen, and then afterwards there's all this alliance management and all that stuff. We learned that there are 3 basic elements. The first one is using a common language, which we find out in the business modeling the best way to have. So business models, as I will try to explain today, it's a very easy tool if you understand what you're talking about. A lot of people, when they talk about their business model, they go directly to the revenue stream, and they only talk about the revenue. Our business model is selling blah, 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 blah. And this is only the revenue stream. The business model is integrated by 9 big concepts. If we make these 9 big concepts, if we put these 9 concepts into the brains of all the stakeholders, it will be much easier to make deals. It will be much easier to build up alliances because we will be pretty aligned on what we are expecting, what we're talking about. Then also in business development, as we live in a planet where you have today, thanks to the globalization, and we already saw that more and more stakeholders are being part of the process. When you look for a partner in any kind of the activities you might expect to have support, you don't look to your neighborhood, you look around the world. And this process of looking the best partner you can have around the world it's a very complex process. You need to deal easily with more than 100 companies might be supporting you in that. So you need to do all this scouting process, you need to manage all that. So we have been working on the standardization of procedures of that, which you'll find standardization of procedures in product development, in manufacturing, in regulatory, but not in business development. So our job over 16 years was to develop standardized operation procedures. And all that can only be done as you do when you develop a product over a project management platform. And that this project management platform has to be based on cloud technology because you collaborate with people all around the world. So that's a long story. I only have 15 minutes and I will be trying to be on that. Maybe I take an additional 5. So I will only talk about the business model, the use of business models. All the rest, unfortunately, we don't have time today, but happy to discuss further at any point in time. So moving in this gap, we need to understand what drives the academia, especially the academia scientists, and what drives the big pharma. If we don't understand the expectations, and these days we have talked about all that things, so most of the things I'm going to say, we have already seen. So if we don't understand the drivers, we will never be able to partner. In one side, and this is the pure reality, the government typically, and this is a generalization which it's always a race to generalize things, but I'm trying to simplify things. So typically the governments invest in academia research, and this academia research is based on developing science by itself, but also publications and citations. And we all agree that the productivity to the academia research is based on how many publications, and then depending on the publications and the citations, you receive more money. So if we apply these concepts, the researchers will be driving their efforts into that direction, and that's what is happening. Okay? There is, for example, the other investments that normally the governments do is, for example, in forms of biobanks. But at the end, the biobank is supporting the academia, the research, and all that stuff. At the end of the process, we all know, at least in health, that we should be thinking on health solutions. Okay, everything we do at the end of the day, and not because I'm a doctor, I'm always thinking that anything we do has to have a sense and bring solutions to the patients. But it's clear that bringing a solution to a patient motivates a scientist, for sure. The problem is that that's so far away from their daily desk. So a lot of times in the academia, innovation as a concept, it's linked to, let's see if we can generate some kind of new health solutions. But that's the top of the definition. It normally gets there. So let's go now to the other side, the other side of the table. How the big pharma sees this gap. In a summary, the big pharma, and it's totally the reality, which is basically all the commercialization is done by profitable companies. So profits are what drives a decision in a big pharma to bring a solution to the market. If it's not profitable, aside of non-profit divisions and all that stuff, but in general terms, even by law, we learn today that they have to take care of the shareholders' investment, and that's profitability. So the first thing that a profitable business thinks is that anything we do will be profitable or not. So that's a big thing, and that's the pure reality. And it's good that it's like this, because if we're not profitable, they will disappear, and if they disappear, nobody will commercialize any new solutions. So the sustainability of the research, it's a must. The patent world is a must, because then is where we protect all these reduced time of commercialization where I can do profits. Then the end of the commercialization, the end of the research is to be able, that we are able to commercialize at any point in time. And that will bring solutions to patients. So in a way, we are aligning these solutions to patients, but the definition of innovation in the pharma world, the big players, it's a little bit more complex. Because the solution, at the end, the payer, we have two big payers. Or is the government again, which was the one that was putting the money at the beginning, or it's patient directly or indirectly through insurances. So the innovation definition from the commercial side, it's yes, new, incremental or disruptive health solutions that arrive to the market, otherwise there's no innovation, but driven by profitable businesses and affordable for the payers. The FDA is not the end of the story. Of course, in the US, you have a private market, but in Europe and in Canada and in other markets, 80% of the health is public. And the market access is so complex that even having a drug approved, you still have challenges of not being paid or reimbursed. So it gives an additional point to the formula. So this is to say that, and we already discussed today that in order to make that sustainable, the big pharma can only get into the game at the proof of concept level and say this big risk on the phase 2, someone has to take care of that, which is totally normal, otherwise they will get into a non-profitable business. So this gap in between, where the science is thinking on, at the end of the road of new solutions, whether the big pharma is thinking, yes, new solutions, but that arrive to the market that are affordable and profitable, this gap is where the risk is, and we have already seen that. This is where the valley of death plays a role. So who drives this in the middle? If I want the proof of concept and the other one wants to publications and citations, there is a gap here that is where the startups, or also called biotech companies, whatever it's called, is where they play a role. Taking basically assets from the academy and bringing to proof of concept. This gap, which when we talk about building up an ecosystem and we talk about startups, we need to understand that this is the most risky space. So one of the questions we have here on the table is, should Qatar build up this space or not? If we build up a risky mentality, yes, but if we are risky adverse, this is not a place to play, okay? Just as a point to discuss further. Good, so for Qatar, the question is, should we create an ecosystem or should we use existing ecosystems? And that's a very good option. Our recommendation will be first start using existing ecosystems, and the creation of an ecosystem could be a second step. But we need our own proof of concept to say what we develop here is really, we can do innovation, but the innovation understanding the full definition of innovation. So, what we learn, I come from Barcelona and we set up a bioregion, an ecosystem in Barcelona over the last 12, 13 years. So if we go back to the 2000, we got, as any area, we got hospitals, we got research, we got universities, but it was completely unlinked. Everyone was doing its own job and they didn't think that we were even a community. So then the government placed a little bit of money and we created what was the BioCat, and also there was another initiative in the Basque Country, another initiative globally in Spain called Asebio. So there was different clusters trying to put all the people together, making them conscious that we were a team, we can do things together. So we started doing a lot of things, and I was one of the advisors, preparing training, preparing a lot of things. One of the things we worked a lot was bringing this concept of starting the research with the end in mind, and with the full definition of the end in mind, not only a health solution, but from the beginning, thinking that any health solution has to be sold, has to have a market potential, and has to be affordable. And this concept, normally from the research, we ignore that. It's not for us. I do my research, I have my publications, my citations, and this is my life. So we need to move. I like when Alexander said today, we move from the I to the we. And so that's what we need to promote that concept. So, as I said, everything starts on the R&D place, and we need to shape these brains into the simple business concepts. And that's possible. We have already done that, as I explained today. So, if you go to a scientist and you say, you need to set up a business plan of what you're doing, do you think that's going to work? I can guarantee you that no, that doesn't work. It's too complex. And nobody's going to spend hours and days to write a 100 business plan. It doesn't work like that. And some people try to do that and they fail. But this concept of the right business model, using business models at the science level, it really works fantastic. Because it's very simple. Using the terminology of business modeling, especially since Alexander Stumbalder from Switzerland started the business model generation in 2010 more or less, and all the universities in the world from Stanford to Harvard, if you go to Harvard Business Review, you will find a lot of these things. That gives very simple terminology for a scientist, for a CRO, for any stakeholder, to at least touch 9 thick concepts where we can be all aligned. And that's the value of the concept of using business models. Business model, I like to say, is like a music sheet. It's something that if you write a music sheet, if I play that music sheet and I'm from San Francisco, or I'm from Qatar, or I'm from, I don't know, Taipei, aside of the personal interpretation, the music will be the same. When we use business models, it's a little bit the same. We're using concepts that everyone understands because they're very simple, but then we are using properly. And when scientists start to talk about value propositions, customer segments, channels, and these things, immediately they learn that in one day. I can promise. I have done this here in Qatar. I went with Khaled and a few scientists. They joined me. We spent 8 hours together, and at the end they were talking about business models crazily. And it took 8 hours. Of course, you need more training and things like that, but I'm talking about very simple things. And believe it or not, and we have people here that can confirm that, thanks to that exercise, we were discovering new applications of the research they were doing just by discussion with their colleagues. So it's not even myself suggesting anything. They were just sitting down and putting ideas in order. They were already suggesting each other, why you don't do that? You didn't think about this customer segment. Maybe what you're doing brings value to the... It was amazing. And it took 8 hours, not more than that. Doing the good training, it takes longer. But small steps, as Khaled said, baby steps, sometimes can add a lot of value. So when we use business models, the good thing is that the business model integrates how you create value, how you deliver value, and how you capture value. So if you think about research, purely research, it's only part of the activities of value creation, nothing else, which is a lot, but ignores value delivery and value capture, absolutely. So that's not business. And when you think about business, you need to integrate the 3 things. If you don't integrate the 3, it's just part of the activities you have to do, but it's an important part, but it's not enough. Doing business model, it's a very dynamic exercise. It's not that you do it by yourself, you learn the techniques easily, and immediately you're working with your mates and doing amazing improvements in a very short time. Everything that you design in a business model, this is the design part of the business model, has to be validated. And that's the most extraordinary thing. Get out of your lab and go to talk to people. You say that this would be of interest to doctors, go and talk to them. You see that this might be paid by someone else, talk to them. You see that you think that this will commercialize by these channels, talk to them. Segment your value proposition depending on your customer segments. Align all the activities that you need to do in your business model or others, and then you will understand what kind of partners you need. Because when you partner, a partner is someone that does some of the activities. You need to create, deliver, capture value. It's very simple. You just need to understand the do, re, mi, fa, sol, and that's it. That's all. But if we bring that understanding to the table, and then we go to talk to the stakeholders, they will be, well, they are so amazed when a scientist talks in this terminology and understands the business behind, that I can guarantee you that this goes up to the priority of the other person in the outside. It works extremely well. There is a second step, which is the validation. Your business model is what is inside this room. But of course, we need to validate what is going around. And we have from key trends to market trends, industry trends, and macroeconomics. This affects your business model definitely. So we need also to understand these things. And with all these design and validation of business models, we will be able to do innovation, and we will be able to do validation and take decisions. Because a lot of times when you design your business model, at a certain point you realize you are completely wrong. And when you are wrong, you have not even yet started to invest money. So I will give you a couple of examples where this was done early or late. Also, the business model helps for communication. You know, when you have someone, it's typically when a scientist goes to visit the venture capital and starts to talk about science and science and science, and the venture capitalist at the second minute is just checking his mobile phone. And it's the reality. They really even don't understand what you're talking about, because they see 300 projects per month. But if you start talking, you know, this is the value proposition we are going, we think this goes to this segment of clients, and that will be promoted. Like, they will turn down the mobile and listen to you. Sure, because you are talking the same language, and it's not so complicated. So definitely, that's a very valuable tool for this kind of promotion of alliances. You can talk to the startups world in this sense, which will be closer to what you're doing in the academy, but the startup will use the same tools to talk to the industry. And the most important thing, under my point of view, is that anything is validated. If, for example, you have a lead and you think that you have to do this and that to arrive to a certain point where someone will generate interest, first go to talk to them and say, look, this is my plan. I want to arrive to this point. If I achieve this goal, it's like you do with the FDA. You go to the FDA and say, what do you expect from us to deliver? Why don't we do that at the beginning? Talk to the potential partners we will develop over the time and ask them if you are going in the right direction, if you are targeting the right endpoints, you know, and if you arrive to that point, if they will be interested or not. That's validation. That's simply like this. But you will need to talk about business models. Let me give you a couple of examples that we have been involved over the last years linked to antibiotic resistance, which we all agree it's big need. So we have this company called Passeig and a company called Trifermed. Passeig is a startup from the University of Montreal, from the Med faculty. And they started, both companies are from 2004, 2005. So Passeig started with a very clear need in mind, which was, if you see there, a regulatory trend. And this regulatory trend was basically the European intention to reduce the use of antibiotics in animal production. Now it's a hot topic, but 10 years ago there was some trends over there, because it's clear that the more we use antibiotics in animal production, you know, the bacteria are smart and they learn about resistance, so we are reducing the possibility of using those antibiotics for us. That's basically the principles. So that company started with that end in mind. We need to find solutions for the antibiotics to substitute with biologicals, vaccines, immunomodulators, or probiotics, whatever you want to call it. So they started with that end in mind. And in only 6 years, we did a large agreement with Elanco. Co-development agreement and commercialization agreement with Elanco, which you know is the animal health division of Eli Lilly up to today. Maybe in the next month we'll not anymore, but it's on this process of spinning off, but anyhow. So a big multinational, Elanco is one of the top in animal health. There's Zoetis around and others, but Elanco is one of the top. A small company, only 15 people in Passeig. I've never seen more than 15 people. They spin off, set up the company. Big science, but there was a CEO. One rule of Univalor, Technology Transfer Office of University of Montreal. If you don't have a CEO that comes from experience, entrepreneurship, they don't license out, they don't spin off. So they don't let scientists to be the CEOs, but they let scientists to be the CSO or whatever they want to be. So they mixed that, they put a CEO that got clear ideas in mind, and in only that short period of time, there was a co-development agreement and commercial agreement for Europe with Elanco, and today this product is commercialized in all Europe. And I can tell you, investment, no more than 50 million. So we know that for a new chemical entity we talk about billions, but there are examples of commercialization population that are in the tens of millions. It's not in the even the hundreds. It's less than 100 million invested in this project. And they are already selling, they are already having revenues. And now Elanco, of course, is thinking, well, should I buy this company or not? Because they have the license for Europe, but that's a growing trend. So that's one nice example. But I'll tell you another example, which is nice, but it's different. These people, Archibald from Barcelona, again, spin-off from a hospital in that case, research hospital in Barcelona that has a division specialized in tuberculosis, which has a big reputation. The PI there is recognized as one of the top leaders in tuberculosis in the world. So this gentleman, top brilliant PI, said, okay, that was the hypothesis. If I generate a solution that reduces tuberculosis treatment from 6 months only to 2, I will solve a big problem, which is compliance and which is all this resistance to tuberculosis. We will all agree here, I think. That makes a lot of sense. But they didn't validate that. He was the doctor, and I'm the doctor, I know everything about this illness, I know the problem. But there was a lack of validation into the real stakeholders. What happened is they did the homework, they did the phase 2, they arrived to the end of phase 2. Great, in South Africa, nice study. And they come to us and say, you have everything, look for a partner for phase 3. The result, interestingly enough, we validate, we said, well, this is your hypothesis, and they don't like when we say that, but this is a commercial hypothesis, that the market will have, you never talk to them, okay? So you ask us to talk to them, okay, we will, that's our job. We validated that hypothesis with 320 stakeholders, not only pharma companies, also governments, everyone involved in tuberculosis, Bill Gates Foundation, TBVI, and all the stakeholders. They all said, wrong assumption. So the market opportunity is not reducing from 9 months to 3 because those are generics. The budget that the government has to treat tuberculosis is dollars, single-digit dollars. So you are trying to sell an immunomodulant of $100 to reduce from 9 to 3 months? No way. And tuberculosis is not even an illness that you can control as a doctor or as a pharma company. It's everything regulated by governments. You have a patient, you are a doctor, you call to the government, say, I have a patient here, and they tell you what you have to do. You don't have any power decision. So this solution that was perfectly designed on the medical point of view had no market, zero, forget it, unless you want to do a non-for-profit project. So, but the feedback was, hey, why don't you test your vaccine, therapeutic vaccine, into multi-drug resistant tuberculosis or rifampicin-resistant tuberculosis? This company had to fire all the team, close the manufacturing plant. There was only the CEO surviving. They did all the pivoting, find new company, find new investors. Today they are running the phase 2 in multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. There's a lot of companies waiting for the results. What I'm saying is that if you start with good validated commercial concepts in mind, the probability of success, the probability that Bob receives you, or the middle management, it's clearly higher, but you need to think business from the day one. And that's why I brought these 2 examples to you. So, let me finalize my presentation. Remember, please, this definition by encouraging you that great projects need time. And I give you, if I ask you, Barcelona, what sounds familiar for you? Don't need to say that, but most of you will have a couple of things in mind. So those couple of things started by these 2 gentlemen. So you see by the pictures, those are not pictures taken by an iPhone, those are pictures from the 18th and 19th century. This gentleman was called Antoni Gaudi, which, by the way, was born in 1852 and died in 1925. And this gentleman was called, it was a Swiss guy called Hans Max Gamper Heisig, which we call Johann Gamper, which is easy for us. He was born in Switzerland, he went to tour, same ages. So these people in the 19th century did a couple of things that today are the main reasons why Barcelona is known. One is, of course, all the Gaudi work, and the Sagrada Familia is one of the things you might think about Barcelona. The second one is the Barcelona Football Club. And all these things started in the 19th century. So when you think about big projects, it takes time, but you can succeed. Just to finalize, let me give you some kind of conclusion recommendations that was basically why Ale asked us to be here today. The first one is, it's clear that Qatar has done a great job in biomedical academy research, among others, of course. There's nothing to say about all of the things. But there's a great job done, and there's a lot more to be done. But there is a need to transfer, this is my point of view, to transfer the most innovative projects. When I talk about innovative, please take the full definition. To the right partners located at the right ecosystems that will invest on your assets with experience, human resources and capital to move along the value chain and arrive to a proof of concept. My recommendation is take those assets, the most innovative you want. I saw 120 posters the other day. There might be a few, or maybe more than a few, that are really innovative. Do whatever you have to do, talk to New York, patent them, whatever, but don't try to develop here. Just put it in the right ecosystem, in the right startups that they are already in that field, and start to build up stories of success that are based on some early stage down here. That will generate citations, but different citations, business citations, which is the ones we are thinking. The second thing, or third, there's basically a second one. I think that Qatar should be closely involved with the partners in order to learn and bring expertise to Qatar. So if you license your technologies, just don't license and ignore. Be involved in that sense. Do co-development agreements. Do part of the research. Whatever can be done here, partner and learn and learn and learn to move along the value chain, which is really complex. There would be another idea, is that an investment arm in Qatar, but I don't think should be a governmental investment, could be, I don't want to get on that, but it has to be a risk-friendly team. I mean, I was just imagine an example, we're saying, hey, gentlemen, just come here, put, I don't know, 200 million standard venture capital in Europe. And this 200 million, you will invest in 17 buildings. 16 of them will fall down. Only one will remain. But with the money you do with that one, you will have all the money back and you will be profitable. That's a different thing than building 17 buildings and just renting or selling. So you need to find this kind of venture mentality. But if you are able to arm a certain investment arm here that starts investing outside and learn from that investment, that could be also a way to start learning. And then you will have the two arms. You will have projects ongoing, investment ongoing outside that will bring a lot of value to you. If those assets arrive to the right stage with a good development, the big pharma will take, because they are looking, they already tell us, they are looking for phase 2 finished proof of concept assets that are profitable and all the things I have already said. And with some successful stories, as scientists, as business managers, as investors, there will be a high number of projects and everything can generate the beginning of a potential bioregion or a proper business zone here. Just finalizing, I'm passionate, I'm also a professor in the business school. I think we need to train scientists to use business, and we need to train business people to be more comfortable in science. And this can be done here. You have business schools, you have science schools. Start to shake all these brains and get them together. That generates a lot of opportunities. So that's the end. You have my contact details. It's been a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for your time.